The Atlanta Falcons going into Detroit. The line has moved. There is money coming in on the Falcons, and we're going to take a deep dive into that game. Plus so much more. NFL, college football, Major League Baseball. You're watching Wager Talk today. I promise you, the best damn daily sports betting show on the planet. Let's welcome in Steve Merril. Let's start the show. How are you, Steve? It's Tuesday.
Woo! Tuesday, $2 Tuesday. And we wish, I believe, is it Mark? I believe he's on later. We wish him the best for $2 Tuesday. And I'm just here. Oh, it's Dave Koken? Okay.
It is Dave Koken that's the $2 Tuesday guy.
I know it's normally the first guest here.
I'll do the heavy lifting. You just provide us with the analysis, okay? You're going to be hosting.
It's taking all my power not to be a smartass here after last Tuesday. So trust me, you don't want to mess with me. I was going to have so many lines in my head, Teddy. So many lines I want to use, but I'm not going to do it.
I want to dude. Now I want to put the show on hold.
Here we go.
Okay, you know what? You're hosting next Friday. I'm flying to New York. So why don't you save the hosting for then? Teddy, get some actionable info out of this man.
Sure, Friday night college football TV action, NC State and Virginia. We've seen I got a little bit of Virginia money. This was 9.5 last night. Now we're seeing NC State -9 on the road in Charlottesville. Total 46.5. What do you want to do with the Wolfpacks and the Wahoos?
Yeah, the not my Virginia Cavaliers, Teddy. This is not a good football team this year, and it's an interesting team to talk about, though, because tough season last year. Now, they had the 3 players shot on campus. They ended up having 2 games canceled. They went 3-7 on the year. It was a really tough season for a first-year coach, and it's been a tough start this season as well. And Virginia obviously not looking really good, but NC State's been a little choppy as well. You know, they had that non-covering win at UConn to start the season back on the 31st of August, and then blown out by a good Notre Dame team as a 7-point home dog, and then can't read much into the VMI game last week. So I think it's kind of a make-or-break game for both of these teams this week. But instead of looking at the side, I'm going to look at the total. You talked about a little bit of money coming in on NC State. I feel like there's been a little bit of sharp money on the over in this game, and I agree with that move. You know, you wouldn't think we'd be talking over with a Virginia team that scored 14 points or less in 2 of their 3 games. The only game they put up more than 14 was against James Madison, who used to be an FCS power, is now transitioned up, obviously, to FBS in the Sun Belt. And Virginia did have a tough loss in that home game, 36-35. And by the way, that was their only true home game of the season. They had a neutral against Tennessee, and they were at Maryland last Friday night. But this Virginia offense, I think, still has some potential to get there against NC State. And Virginia, surprisingly, is 3-0 over this season. And the main reason, though, is because their defense has been horrendous. They've given up 42.5 points a game. They've given up 450 yards per play. That James Madison home game a couple of weeks I referenced had a 71 combined points scored. And I think that both these offenses can get more going than they've shown so far this season. NC State's been very average on both sides of the ball. So let's look at over the total in this one. It's in the high 40 range, which is a pretty low total for college football. Virginia's defense has been giving up this amount on their own almost this year.
So NC State quarterback Brennan Armstrong had a really good year. I thought he was a good quarterback. I think it was the last year that Bronco Mendenhall was in Virginia. Yeah, he threw for 4,000 yards, 31 touchdowns, 66% completions. And then everyone graduated. That was 2021. Everyone graduated. Last year, he was not anywhere near that level. I watched him a couple times this year, and Brennan Armstrong's not a QB I'm excited about playing over the total. I'll just put it that. Now he's facing his former team. In theory, they should have some knowledge of how to defend him. And he's a QB, a veteran QB, that hasn't really been lighting it up. Do any of those factors concern you when you're looking at the over here? I mean, full disclosure, I had NC State over the total on opening night against UConn, and that game had no chance to go over the total. And NC State was not an over team. And I made big notes. NC State is not an over team. So I've lost playing an NC State over once this year. Maybe I'm burned on that. How do you feel about some of the concerns I have about this particular over?
Well, I think some of that's factored in the line. This line opened 45.5. Pretty low total for modern college football. Now it's up to 46.5. I even see couple of the sharper books I respect at 47. So 47, by the way, as you know, Teddy, is a key number. So is 48. Both 47 and 48 are key numbers. So at 46.5 or less, which is still widely available if you look at the WagerTalk live odds screen, I do think that's being factored into this total. And something else I want to point out is that we're past the 25% point here in college football. I always talk about handicapping both college and pro football to different quadrants. The NFL, I kind of look at the first 4 weeks. That's about 25%. It used to be exactly. Now it's a little less with 17 games. College football, everyone pretty much plays 12 games. So they're 3 games in. This is the 4th game. We're in that second quadrant. So no preseason, no exhibition games. Teams often start a little sluggish offensively. And I think that's maybe what we saw in the UConn, maybe the Notre Dame game. So I'm looking for maybe some upside now from NC State. And you're right, they have not thrown the ball well this year, but Virginia has not defended the pass well this year. They're giving up over 8 yards per pass attempt. As I mentioned, 42 points a game. So if he does struggle this week, I would agree with you. I'd be very careful, very cautious going forward. But I want to take a wait-and-see approach. I think they're going to have a pretty good game throwing the ball against a bad Virginia pass defense.
Steve Merril joining us, everyone. You're watching Wager Talk today. We got a great show lined up. Steve's going to talk about the Blue Jay Yankees game, which I'm excited to hear about. I'm obviously a slight Blue Jay fan. Mark Zinno joining us. We haven't had him on in a while. He's going to look at the LA Angels and Tampa Bay, and he's going to take apart the Atlanta Falcons and Detroit game. We got Teddy's big game breakdown. A great BS question from Greg Macaluso and Dave Sharapan. Maybe. Dave did text Teddy and I saying that he had a doctor's appointment. He might be running late. If no Dave Sharapan, Teddy and I are going to take apart some NFL. It is $2 Tuesday, everybody. Dave Koken, that's the man for $2 Tuesday. And Teddy, Dave's got a 5% play going in college football tonight. It's only $2, not tonight, this week, but it's only $2. And to give you perspective, Dave's released 491 plays this season. He's had 3 5% plays. He's 3-0, perfect 3-0. These are the biggest plays he has. They're very rare, and it's only $2. I used to say that was the price of a coffee at Dunkin' Donuts, but no, that's the price of the tip for the coffee at Dunkin' Donuts. Steve, Blue Jays, -110 at the Yankees, and man, what an ending we have to the baseball season. We got wild card drama in both the NL and AL, and the Blue Jays are sitting right in the middle of that. They are holding on for dear life by 1 game over Seattle. Texas is in the hunt as well. Texas has Boston. Seattle has Oakland. And the Blue Jays have the Yanks. Who's going to win this game?
Yeah, I mean, the National League, you got like 5 different teams within a couple games of that wild card spot. But in the American League, it's not quite as exciting. It's basically 3 teams fighting for the final 2 spots. I think Tampa's up 9.5 on the wild card now. But you're right, Toronto's 1 in right now. And you got Seattle and Texas tied right now. So it's going to be 2 of those 3 teams getting the other 2 spots. So every game very important for Toronto. The Yankees are not one of those teams we thought we'd be talking about here. With 12 games to go, there's 6 back of the wild card, technically still in it. But what's crazy about the Yankees, if you look at the AL East, the mighty AL East, Boston's 1 game below 500 in last place. Every team has a positive run differential by double digits, except the Yankees, who are still negative on the year. And that's because that offense has really struggled at times. A couple things I wanted to talk about in this game. Now, when I said it overnight, it looked like the Yankees are going to be a slight home dog, and that would have fit a really strong angle that our friend Jeff Michaels mentioned months ago here on the show. And Teddy and I thought about it all summer long. It was one of the best MLB angles we'd heard in a while. And that was, of course, teams coming home off extended road trips with a day of rest as a home dog is the worst spot of all. And now the Yankees have the day of rest. They were a slight home dog. Now they're a slight home favorite, but still not a good spot for the Yankees. And I think what's interesting about it is that they went 6-2 their last 8, including 5-2 in those 7 road games. Started to win some ball games finally, and now they're back home, day off, hostile crowd, disappointing season. I don't think this is a positive for the Yankees tonight. And on the other side, your Toronto Blue Jays, 10 straight home games, a very mediocre 6-4 run. I think the day off and traveling might be a good thing for the Blue Jays. So I would lean towards Toronto here at plus money. But I'd like to look at the total as well. The Blue Jays have been an explosive offensive team at times, has not been the case in recent weeks. In fact, I believe it's now 11 straight games that this team has single-digit hits. They've had 8 hits or less now in 10 of their last 11 games. And the Yankees offense has struggled all year, as I mentioned. That's the reason they're out of the playoff race. Now, they did put up 6 runs or more in 3 of those last 4 games, which normally would be an indication they're heating up. But once again, day off, traveling back home after the extended road trip, I think is a huge negative for the offense. So I'd lean Toronto. I'd also lean under 8.5. Would have liked to have gotten a 9 here, but I would still lean under 8.5. You're looking at the total.
When you look at the Blue Jays here in September, it really stands out. All right. They played 5 series: Colorado, Oakland, Kansas City, Texas, Boston. So basically 4 last place teams and Texas. And they did okay against all the last place teams, and they went 0-4 against the Rangers. Yankees near the bottom of the standings for sure, but they're still playing hard. Do we trust, because Toronto, of all the things that everyone that's been in baseball that I've talked to over and over again, can't trust the Blue Jays, can't trust the Blue Jays. Every time I bet on the Blue Jays, I think they're going somewhere they don't. I've heard that, like, it felt like dozens of times this summer. Toronto's beaten up in the week. Can they beat up on a little bit stronger than the week today?
Yeah, as I say, that becomes the question is, are the Yankees really a winning team? Technically, they're 76 and 74 right now, so we'll say they're a 500 team. I think we probably agree, and that's after going 5-2 the last 7. They were a losing team up until a week ago, and that is interesting to point out because, as you said, Toronto's been a lot weaker against above 500 teams, 5 games below 500 this year. Meanwhile, they're 45 and 24 against 500 or worse teams. So I kind of put the Yankees at that level here. So that's another reason I think it's a winnable game for Toronto. But the big thing that the handicap here is kind of this one-game situation where the Yankees are coming home off rest, back in home, back in front of the family, back in front of the disappointed fans. I think this could be a momentum killer for the Yankees, who looked good last week on the road. And I think that would also lean towards the under, at least for this game. If the Yankees offense performs well tonight in what I think is a bad spot, that would be the buy sign this week for the Yankees, and the over probably in future games.
Steve Merril joining us, everyone. And Steve, congratulations on a great Sunday, man. I took a look on yesterday's plays. You can always find out what we bet by going to yesterday's plays. There's no monkeying around. What Steve releases, you will see on that page. 12-3 run in football right now. Great start to NFL. Really seeing things well. Congratulations on that. You always have a promo when you come on this show because you're diligent and ambitious. So give it out. I don't even know if you have one. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, we do. In fact, I'm going to put them on the page right after we finish this segment. I always put them up every Tuesday. I gave a little sneak preview yesterday on Monday, and Teddy does these as well. We do a ton of college football solo game videos, and then we're going to be doing the NFL ones today on Tuesday. Every NFL game will have a solo video from numerous cappers. And these promos were mentioned there as a sneak preview to those viewers, and they're going to be available to everybody here within the next couple minutes on my page, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. First of all, anybody who's a new viewer out there, new user, get a 3-day sampler for $55. Steve 3 gets you a 3-day for $55. That's a great way to try out the service if you've never been with us. But the best deal is available to everybody, and that's a full year, all sports, football, baseball, basketball, for just over $3 a day. Promo code SM365. It works out to just $99 a month, $99 a month. That's over $3 a day for every sport, every day for the next year. SM365, as you mentioned, Prez, fantastic start to football. 9-1 NFL the last 2 Sundays and Mondays for week 1 and 2. 12-3, 80% college and pro football run combined the last couple of weeks. Check out that promo on my page, a full year for $3 a day. Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.
Awesome stuff. Thanks, Steve. Teddy, I got to tell you, man, Steve he's the best salesman we got on the site. I mean, I'm part owner and I want to buy his package and I could get it for free. Like, you'd never look at Steve and think that this man could sell like Flex Seal, you know? He's that good. And his handicapping is ridiculous. I have so much respect for Steve Merril as a handicapper. It's crazy. Anyway, we got to discuss what did bettors learn last night. I'm excited about this conversation.
Sure, Lawrence. You and I get to talk a little NFL football. Let's talk about what we learned last night. 2 Monday night football games. I'm going to give you my thoughts, and we'll see if Lawrence has some thoughts he wants to add as well. Let's start with the Saints defense. That looks really good so far. No touchdown allowed week 1. No touchdown allowed last night till garbage time. And, of course, they gave up the garbage time touchdown and the 2-point conversion to blow the point spread cover. Hopefully you got a push if you had New Orleans last night. But then again, the Saints have faced Carolina and Tennessee. And the Tennessee game with Tannehill have not played in the preseason. So it's not like they played elite level offenses yet or anything even close. And I mean, I thought this the whole time Derek Carr was in Las Vegas. Derek Carr ain't winning no Super Bowls. Okay, he's just not. He's better than the average starting quarterback. He's never going to be elite. And the Panthers defense flummoxed the Saints for extended stretches. But that offense still very much a work in progress. That said, Bryce Young's not really flashing much yet. Panthers offense looks pretty rough the first 2 weeks from a statistical standpoint. I believe it's the worst offense in the NFL on a yards per play basis. The late game, the second game, the Steelers and the Browns. I had a wrong side and I cashed. I'll take it. Pittsburgh with 2 defensive scores in Prez. I know you have a different opinion about this game than I do. But anytime you win a game that you had 2 defensive scores and your life and death to win it, yeah, it's not really the right side. All right, the defense was awesome. 6 sacks, 4 turnovers, controlled the game. But Pickett's no Deshaun Watson.
That's not even a good thing.
The Steelers, Watson did not play well down the stretch, all right? He didn't look like the same quarterback that he was. The Browns offense in the second half, they had the one big run from Ford, the create your own space cutback, and that was it. Watson put the ball on the ground multiple times. He threw the ball uncatchable out of towns multiple times. It was not a good second half for Deshaun Watson. But I'll still take Deshaun Watson over Kenny Pickett last night. Look, the Steelers closed the game, and I look through every box score. I don't make my bets solely based on box scores. But the Steelers had 9 first downs last night and gave up 200 rushing yards.
Yeah.
Those 2 stats, your win percentage is pretty close to 0. All right. 2 defensive scores helps. Pittsburgh wasn't the right side last night, but they got there. What do you think?
And we'll take it. Teddy, I went 1-1 last night for my clients. I did win, though. My bigger play was on Pittsburgh. I had New Orleans, and I was angry about the push. And I had Derek Carr over 230 yards in the air. He got 228. The guy does not step on the sideline and gets the touchdown there. Instead, I cashed that. I cashed that Derek Carr over. But, in regards to the Cleveland-Pittsburgh game, from a box score perspective, without question, Cleveland dominated that game. I think it was 20.
Watch the whole game.
Okay. Are you want to go again? You can go again. You can go again. Okay.
Go.
Anyway, I watched the whole game too. And yes, box score-wise, Cleveland dominated the game. 20 first downs to 9. Dominated in rushing. More, et cetera, et cetera. With that said, Cleveland did convert 2 2-point conversions. Pittsburgh missed their 1. That would have been factored in if there wasn't one of those touchdowns by the defense, and that would have still got Pittsburgh the cover. As well, Pittsburgh hung around all game. There was never a moment in that game where there was any type of separation. So if we're going to look at this and say, oh, well, Cleveland had more first downs or Cleveland had more rushing yards, therefore they should have won, the game was close from start to finish. As far as Pittsburgh getting defensive touchdowns, I think Pittsburgh's defense could beat Pittsburgh's offense in touchdowns this year. I'm kidding. That won't happen. But, I mean, that's how good that defense is in Pittsburgh. I don't think Pittsburgh was the right side, but I don't think they were egregiously the wrong side. That game came down to exactly what I expected, the last second. And anytime I can get a dog in a matchup between Baltimore, Cincy, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and especially at home, I'm going to take that. I think it was not the right bet, but not the wrong bet. I was comfortable with being on Pittsburgh, and I felt all the way through the game that they were going to cover. I was not freaking out, if you will. And their field position in the fourth quarter was dominated by Pittsburgh. With that said, you mentioned Deshaun Watson not being good down the stretch. I guess you're defining down the stretch as starting from when he came in last year in week 10. Mark Zinno joining us, everyone. Mark, it's been a while, man. We, Teddy was saying to me, Prez, we need someone super studly on the show. And I'm like, I got the guy, Marco D'Angelo. And Teddy's like, but he was on yesterday. And I was like, okay, fine, Mark Zinno. How are you, bro? What's going on?
I am well. Thank you guys for having me as always. And tell Sharapan if he doesn't show up, I'm going to have a bone to pick with him. Just let him know.
I will. So did you work out this morning? I got me a shoulder day coming up.
Well, go get it. And listen, any workout is a good workout. Remember that, especially at our age, right? Doing anything active always helps.
Yeah, especially at our age, Teddy. Okay, Teddy works out. Dude, Teddy does more one-arm bicep workout than anybody else. Let me demonstrate Teddy's bicep workout.
Take the under.
There you go. There you go. That is it.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Mark Zinno, L.A. Angels playing Tampa Bay. You like over the total of 8. Please tell us why.
Yeah, I mean, look, you get two really bad starters on the mound in Taj Bradley for Tampa Bay and Pablo Sandoval for L.A. Bradley's filled a spot in the Rays rotation, but he really hasn't been effective this year at all. Hasn't won a game since June 21st. Since that win, he's allowed at least 3 runs in 7 of his next 9 starts, with 5 of them allowing at least 4 runs. His home ERA on the year, 5.58. Opponents are batting .258 against him. I know Bradley missed the entire month of August on the IL, but in the 3 starts since coming back, his ERA is 5.06. He didn't actually face the Angels last month when the 2 teams played, but the Angels did score at least 6 runs in 2 of those 3 games, in total 13 runs for the series, guys. On the flip side, Pablo Sandoval, another pitcher, not effective. 4.48 ERA and a 1.5 whip on the season. He faced the Rays last month in their series, allowed 6 runs. Now, only 2 of them were earned, but did give up 7 hits over 4 2/3 innings. It was an 18-4 blowout in favor of the Rays. Sandoval's allowed over 20 runs in his last 3 starts, taking a loss in all 3. Now, the Rays against lefties, number 1 in batting average, OPS, and WRC plus at home against lefties since August 14th. This is also an Angels bullpen. It's bottom 6 in baseball, an ERA, whip, and home runs allowed. I think Tampa probably does more of the heavy lifting in this game tonight. When the 2 teams met last month, the Rays scored at least 6 runs in each game. Again, they scored a total of 30 runs between all 3 games in the series for 13 for LA. I don't expect Tampa to let up any because they have a AL East that they're chasing here. So I think we get over this low number of 8 at a favorable price, guys.
So here's my question. All right. I'm looking at some of these Angels numbers right now. And boy, that team, to say they've stopped hitting is kind of an understatement. Let me just run out these numbers for you. They scored 3. They hit a homer in the bottom of the 9th to get the 4, a 3-run homer. They had 1 going in the 9th against Detroit. 2-2-0. They won in Seattle, but they had 3 runs after 9 innings. 2, they had a 6-run outburst against Cleveland. 3-3-3, another extra inning game that they lost. 3. I mean, this team, you can go back weeks, and it's like 3 runs or less unless they get into extras over and over again. Is there a reason you're not playing Rays money line? Or run line, I mean?
Well, I don't like the -1.5 ever. I just don't. I mean, it's not a play that, unless I get a really favorable situation. And I know the Angels have sort of quit at this point in time. And look, there's no doubt about it that the Tigers aren't a great pitching staff, and they scored a combined, 9 runs over the course of 3 games in that series. I give a little bit of credit to the Guardians and Mariners. Those are 2, plus pitching staffs, particularly the Mariners, why they didn't score a bunch of runs against those 2 teams. So this is all about the starter, Taj Bradley. Again, I've watched him repeatedly fill a spot in the rotation. If he gives up 3 runs here, I feel pretty confident that the Rays are going to get to 5 for at least a push, if not 6. And with all the scoring that went on between these 2 teams in the last series that they played out in LA last month, I'll try to ride the wave here that the scoring keeps up. I'm well aware. That's why I said earlier, Tampa Bay is probably going to have to do the heavy lifting tonight, but I'll back them to do so.
Speaking of heavy lifting, Mark Zinno joining us, everyone. And Mark, before we get into the Atlanta-Detroit game, yes, Teddy, you got that reference. Where can people see you? You're doing a bunch of shows. Tell us what's going on in the world of Mark Zinno.
Yeah, check it out on the Hustle Show on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. So I'm there 2 or 3 times a week, appearing for the Hustle Show guys. Of course, you can hear me nationally on ESPN Radio if you want there, but all across the WagerTalk YouTube channel as well on several different shows, including Sports Grid as well over on that network.
Terrific stuff. Mark, we got to move our attention to NFL. Atlanta plus 3.5 versus Detroit. Man, I like Detroit here. Full disclosure, I'm going to be betting Detroit. I have a very hard time believing you're going to talk me out of it, but give it a shot.
Well, look, this line opened around 4.5, and I love the Falcons. Then it was 3.5 by this morning, and I realized that you better move fast. And now I'm seeing threes pop up on the WagerTalk odds screen pretty much across the board, especially at some of the sharper shops in town. So clearly there's money coming in on the Falcons, just like there was on Sunday morning against Green Bay when, that Green Bay Falcons line opened up at Falcons plus 1.5, Green Bay -1, and then flipped to Falcons -1. And by kickoff, it was Falcons -3. So you better move fast. You're going to miss the best of the number here. But here's why there's starting to become a lot of love on the Falcons. One, mostly their offense is loaded with talent, and it's Bijan Robinson. He's totaled 255 yards from scrimmage in the first 2 games and a touchdown. He's been deployed as both a runner and a receiver. Falcons are picking up right where they left off last year when it comes to the run game. They're top 5 in the NFL through the first 2 games. Robinson and Tyler Algier being the 1-2 punch. And the Falcons are good at controlling the game and controlling the clock when they have the ball. Now, the passing game, Desmond Ridder, their quarterback, the numbers look very pedestrian, and they were. A lot of that in week 1 was due to protection issues on the offensive line. And Arthur Smith told the media basically, look, in not in these words, but in no uncertain terms, we couldn't block Brian Burns up front, so we had to make changes, and we had to change the passing game and the passing attack because we couldn't do what we wanted to do. That said, you know how many sacks the Lions have, Teddy, through the first 2 games? A half.
A bunch.
Half sack. They have a half sack through the first 2 games. So either the Falcons' offensive line is going to be able to give Ridder time, or the Atlanta O-line is exactly what the Lions needed to finally get to the quarterback. But the Lions' pass defense might be just what Ridder needs, 26th in the NFL passing yards through 2 games, and they allow over 10 yards of completion. That said, the Lions' offense isn't to be taken lightly, guys. Average 283 passing yards a game. That's 4th in the NFL. The Atlanta defense, though, if you've watched this team, is much improved. Their new defensive coordinator, Ryan Nielsen, came from the New Orleans Saints, where we saw that team last night and their defense, how good they are. He's instilling a lot of those same systems. I know the numbers don't look like they're there, but it's particularly a limited sample size. Jared Goff has all of a sudden become a quasi-elite quarterback, 576 yards in the year, 4 touchdowns and a pick. The Falcons hope to get former Lions cornerback Jeff Okudah back for this game because Trey Flowers was in his place, and he's not all that good. I think Okudah plays. But here's the big thing here, Prez, and what you have to take into account. The Lions are loaded with injuries right now. Running back David Montgomery has a thigh bruise. Dan Campbell says he's day-to-day. After the game, Montgomery said it might take a couple of weeks for him to get back to where he needs to be. Safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson, cornerback Emmanuel Mosley, both listed as questionable. Yesterday, it was Campbell saying Mosley's not looking good. Linebacker James Houston has a broken ankle. He's out. Offensive guard, you ready for this name? Halapoulivaati Vaitai. He's not playing either with an injury that he's left tackle Taylor Decker didn't play last week. Doesn't look like he's going to play again this week. So you got 2/5 of their offensive line already out. Their secondary's banged up. This is not a team right now that is in good shape as they welcome in a Falcons team that's probably going to surprise a lot of people. Look, the Falcons are going to be in close games. Since Arthur Smith has gotten there, they've always been in close games. If you can get 3.5, if it's still out there, take it. I probably am going to walk away at 3. Hope it gets a little bit closer, and then maybe take the Falcons at a little bit of a closer money line number. But this same thing happened on Sunday, guys, with the Falcons and Packers, where a ton of money poured in late on the Falcons, and your only choice was to take the Falcons on the money line here. So I'm going to back the Falcons once again. If I get a 3.5, which is still out there, I'll lock in here shortly. I'll take the Falcons plus 3.5 on the road in Detroit.
Mark Zinno, awesome stuff, man. Wow, pro. Anyway, my brother, what do you got to promote?
Make sure you guys head over to my page over at Sports Memo. 2 baseball plays up already. We're going to get one more in there as a line popped up that I was looking for in the Diamondbacks game. So we'll get that game up there as well. So we'll do a 3-4 today over at Sports Memo. Again, sm.buzz/MZ is where you go.
Mark Zinno, outstanding stuff, guys. Yeah, go ahead, Teddy.
No, I was just saying one last point in favor of Atlanta from a yards per play on defense. And this is why the money's coming for the Falcons. It's only 2-game sample size, but Atlanta, number 3 in the NFL yards per play defense, giving up only 4.2 yards per play. The Lions tied for 26th in the NFL. They've allowed more than 5.5 yards per play.
Oh, Mark wants back in. Come on back in, Mark.
One more thing. 2 fourth quarters this year. Falcons have outscored their opponents 27-0 in the 2 fourth quarters this year. So they are closing out games and closing them out well. And that's something to put in your back pocket if they're trailing heading into the fourth.
Okay, there we go. If you want to hear my rebuttal, and I completely disagree with Mark Zinno, you can watch it on the NFL presidential address. I'm taping it today. Part 1 will be up late tonight. Teddy Covers, it's time for your big game breakdown.
Let's do it. Big game breakdown time here on WagerTalk Today. Let's talk NFL Sunday action. The Carolina Panthers traveling to Seattle to take on the Saints. Looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen right now, I'm seeing Seattle -6. There are 6.5 starting to pop up. Total 42.5 for that ball game. And look, Panthers head coach Frank Reich knew there were going to be some growing pains with a rookie quarterback. He says he thinks his offense is showing signs of breaking out, despite, what did they score, 27 points in 2 games? Quote, it's not that far away. I know it looks bad, but it's not that far away. You make a few plays, and you're at 28 points. Yeah, so far they've averaged 4.3 yards per play. That's not close to being good. The defense, however, looks great. And when we're talking week 3 NFL, we start to look at some defensive stats. Seattle's defense, they got picked apart by the Rams. They got picked apart by Detroit. Now, the Panthers obviously didn't have Matthew Stafford or Jared Goff, 2 Super Bowl quarterbacks. They got a rookie. I bet Seattle's season wins over. What we saw last week offensively in Detroit is more of what I expected. The defense made all win-now moves in the offseason. The defense hasn't really been that good. Obviously, they played better QBs. But from a number standpoint, Seattle, number 30 in the NFL, 5.9 yards per play. Only Chicago and the LA Chargers have been worse so far this season. And then you look at how Seattle's done in this home favorite role. So we're going to have a team that's attracting and betting attention, that's not playing the type of defense that we like. Pete Carroll as a home favorite. Only 1 winning season against the spread, the last 4 in that role. That was 2020, the year where we're throwing everything out. Between 2021, 2022, and 2019, 5-12 ATS as home favorites. 0-1 this year so far as home favorites. Carolina is a hard team to trust. They're a hard team to trust away from home. It feels like the type of game Seattle's going to win. But margin's not always easy for Pete Carroll's squad. I'll play a little contrarian here. If I'm going to get involved in this game, I'd be taking the points and not laying them. There's your big game breakdown. Back to you, Mr. Prez.
Well, then I suggest you do not get involved in this game, Teddy. I like Seattle. If you want to hear why, the NFL presidential address. And yeah, I know, 2 favorites. I've told you already. I got some dogs too. There are dogs I like also. Teddy, why the hell did Andy Dalton come into that game? Can you explain the strategy of bringing the Viking in?
Yes, they wanted to. It was going to be a quarterback sneak. Bryce Young is like a little guy, and Andy Dalton is a big guy. So they brought in Andy Dalton for the quarterback sneak, and Andy Dalton's cadence was different from Young's cadence, and voila,
right?
You have a false start, and so much for that try. But that's why they did it.
Yeah,
it
may, like, to me, listen, I get it, but hey, small guys can fit through littler holes. I would know. Oh my God. Okay, we have to move on. Okay, First and foremost, we need some likes, guys. Please, if you don't mind. I didn't ask at the top of the show. We got 385 of you watching live. We'd appreciate the teamwork. Take 1 second out of your day and hit that like button. Subscribe to our channel. Teddy, I want to congratulate you. The opening line report is a monster this year. I think you had 17,000 views. That's a lot of people, man, watching your show. I've watched it. The content is outstanding. So way to go, man. You taped it yesterday. Guys, you can find that show up on our WagerTalk TV channel at YouTube. It really is as good as it gets. Anyway, sorry.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Well, I mean, I'm being honest here, bro. Probably because you're not working with me. Always at your best when the Prez isn't around. Okay, we're going to get into our betting strategy question, and I really love this question. It was sent in by Greg Macaluso, and the question is, how come during the season some plays are client plays and some are personal plays? Is there another reason besides not giving your clients a bad number that moved? So, listen, this is a dilemma that I can speak from myself that I have had to deal with. Yeah, all handicappers have to deal with this dilemma all the time. And there are a few reasons. First off, I bet a lot of plays, and I don't like to release a ton of plays. I mean, as it stands, I released 11 plays on Sunday. I probably bet 17. So right off the bat, the plays that don't make my card for my clients are not my best plays. That doesn't mean I'm not going to put 1 or 2% on a play. But the biggest reason why, period, is exactly what you said, Greg. The line moves. You know, if somebody likes Seattle at plus 4.5, they might grab that number on a Sunday night, on a Monday. By the time it's time to release the play, it's 3.5, and they don't like it as much. Furthermore, there's all this live in-game betting that is being done. And on top of that, and I'll give you a perfect example, literally on this show, I got a text. Where is that? I got a text saying first half Dallas Cowboys over Buffalo, Miami. So I'm deeply embedded into a bunch of wise guy syndicates, and I get these texts from time to time, and I am going to jump on them. That doesn't necessarily mean I release them, and oftentimes it's 5 minutes before game time, which is also a problem. I'm going on too long here. Teddy?
So there's a number of reasons. The biggest reason, Greg, and it's a great question, because we talk about sometimes bets we made that the clients didn't get. The biggest reason is that you don't want to give your clients a bad number that moved. And there are bets that you make, and then, the thought process when you're here in Vegas is, bet first, think later. There are a lot of times I'll fire out one unit, small bets on Sunday and Monday. Bet first and figure out what I'm going to do with it later. When you see a number, you grab it. That's what I do as a bettor. As a handicapper, it's not that way. You need analysis, thought process, a write-up and all that. And it's not like I have to get the write-up done before I put it up, but there is when you see a bet, between that bet getting to your clients, it's not instantaneous. And often there are many times that the line has moved. But that's only one piece of the puzzle. All right. Again, full disclosure. 2003, 2004, I had an 0-11 college football Saturday. Okay. When you have a day like that, your clients all leave you. They're gone. They don't come back. If you have an 0-5 college football Saturday, maybe your clients will get there. They're not going to be happy, but you don't literally lose every client you have. The disaster day can happen sometimes. As a bettor, you try to avoid those. As a handicapper, as a professional handicapper, if you have the disaster day that burns every client's bankroll gone to the ground, you got no clients and you're out of business. So that was a lesson I learned when I had a particularly bad college football Saturday early in the campaign, is that the clients don't want 11 plays. There are guys that we have at WagerTalk that do a high volume approach. But my experience has been clients want a reasonable number of your best plays. And that's what I try to give them every week. And that is an excellent question, Greg. But that's the answer.
Yeah, and Teddy, you did so much better job at answering that question than I did. I should have just thrown to you in the first damn place. Manishtanaha. Anyway, phenomenal question, Greg. And I want you guys to realize that there's no secret sauce in the background. Teddy and I are answering all these questions. And even from a handicapping perspective, like, why don't you release every play you bet? That's a question a lot of handicappers might not answer and literally might answer with, I do. But we're honest, open, and we really do care about whether you guys win or lose. I had one guy in the chat room say that he does the same workout you do, the same workout you do. And then he says he just recently had a heart attack. So firstly, sorry about that. I hope you feel better. And secondly, let that be a wake-up call to move on to another workout. Teddy, no Dave Sharapan. We're going to race through some NFL. I'm going to throw questions at you. You can do the same at me. Let's start with buy or sell on the Cincinnati Bengals.
I'm selling the Bengals, okay? Flat out. And I understand that Cincy did this last year. That's what everyone keeps telling me. Oh, they did this last year. They were 0-2 last year. Okay. If you haven't figured out last year was last year yet, last year was last year. This is this year. And Cincy got so hot down the stretch, they had no offseason together. Burrow recovering from injury. Burrow's hurt already now. The run defense has been gashed. And the markets are just, oh, no, Cincy's fine. Cincy's fine. Cincy's a one-way. I'm not talking long-term. I'm talking short-term. Right now, I think the markets are too high on Cincinnati based on what I've seen, read, and heard. They're the worst offense in the NFL. No, I'm not buying Cincy at this stage. No.
Yeah, and no, and their offensive line is just a disaster as well. And in that division, that doesn't bode well. My God, TJ Watt should be licking his chops to playing against Cincinnati when those two games happen. But what I love, Teddy, is this narrative that they were 0-2 last year, and then look what they did. That narrative isn't something that we should jump on. That narrative is something we should jump against. So I appreciate people talking about that. It's overvaluing Cincinnati and giving us an opportunity to bet against them when they're high.
It reminds me a lot of the narrative about San Francisco prior to week one. Everyone's like, oh, the 49ers went on the road last year to that early start game. And remember, they got smacked around there. They're going to get smacked around again. And whereas San Fran's prep was we're not going to let the same thing happen last year that happened this year. And obviously a blowout win in week number one of the season. What about the Chargers? Are you going to buy the Chargers or sell the Chargers at 0-2?
I'm going to buy on the Chargers. I am concerned about this week. They are facing Minnesota in Minnesota, and Minnesota is also a team that we could discuss whether to buy or sell. But look, the Chargers, and I understand last year, we used that argument with Cincinnati, but this is a team that seems to perennially come out of the gate slow. This is a team that could be 2-0 right now, except for really one play in each game. I think this team is loaded on offense. I don't think they've shown what Cincinnati has. I think this is a team that legitimately could have been 2-0. And I think Justin Herbert, at least he's getting protection. I think the Chargers are a buy team moving forward. And frankly, if you're ever going to buy them to win the division, now might be the time. What's your opinion on the Chargers? Do you think that this is a similar case of Cincinnati, or a team that really could have gotten out of Dodge with 2 wins?
Well, when we go back
with
to
that
look
said,
at
they
the way
got
the
to fire
Chargers
the
season,
coach. Get rid of the coach.
You don't have to fire. You don't fire. I don't think you have to fire the coach. I don't think it has anything to do, Brad. The coach is the easiest person to blame. You blame the coach, you blame the quarterback. That's what, non-professional handicappers do. Oh, it's the coach's fault. Oh, it's the quarterback's fault. The Chargers' problem has been real simple. They can't get stops. All right. When you look at the NFL's defensive numbers right now, Number 27, the Giants have allowed 5.6 yards per play. Number 28, Phillies allowed 5.7. Number 29, Buffalo has allowed 5.8. Number 30, these are defenses, yards per play allowed. Seattle at 5.9. Number 31, Chicago at 6.0. Number 32, the Chargers at 6.9. They're way off the charts and how bad they've been defensively.
Yeah.
And when you're giving up bombs to Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee, it means you don't have a championship level defense. Okay. Ryan Tannehill had two 45-yard plus air ball complete with the ball in the air for 45 yards completions for the first time since 2014 against this defense. Chargers have no defense. They have lots of talented players, but no defense. That's not a buy sign for me.
Teddy, we'll race through a couple of more. I know it's 12:46. We'll run the show till 12:50 and call it a day. Let me ask you a question. We got 3 2-0 teams between Atlanta, Tampa Bay, and New Orleans, all in the same division, all teams that nobody expected much of. Which is the best and worst of those 3 teams?
So my clients and I have Atlanta over 8.5 wins. We have Atlanta, a little bit of Atlanta to win the division. There were some people that expected Atlanta to get off to a good start. Not nobody. And Atlanta's schedule is as favorable as it can go look at Atlanta's schedule right now. You're not going to find a more favorable schedule in the league. So I'll put Atlanta at the top of that list. Tampa, jury's out on. I don't know about Tampa. Tampa to me is a let's wait and see approach. They were better and worse than last year than I thought they were going to be last week in Chicago, in a sense. You know, it was literally they were better. There were things that they did better, and yet they should have blown them out. And then it was a 3-point game before the pick six. And who was the third team?
The New Orleans.
I don't know about it. I mean, New Orleans is mediocre. I look at New Orleans
Teddy,
as, power rating. I have them near Atlanta.
So Teddy,
2 teams that are comparably power rated for me.
So I'm just trying to pull up some notes here real quick. You talk about the Chargers defense, why you wouldn't want to bet the Chargers because their defense is so bad. Listen to these now. The New Orleans defense. Go take a look at how many points are being scored against New Orleans. Including last year, the Saints have allowed 7. Yeah, you still got to get the job done, and they're only going to end up playing Atlanta and Tampa Bay. My attitude, and I'll just move on. New Orleans is the best team out of those 3. I don't even think it's close. Washington Commodores, the Commodores, dude, easy like Sunday morning.
Looking real quick,
yeah,
it's because I like to be accurate. Looking real quick, I do have New Orleans better than Atlanta in my power ratings.
Okay,
Tampa of the 3 is the weakest. When it comes to Washington,
bye.
Mixed feelings. That defensive line is capable of taking over games.
Oh, yeah.
They have a ton of skill position talent. I don't trust Howell. I don't trust the offensive line. I don't love the coaching staff. So Washington, they're 8, 9, 9 and 8, 7 and 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Broncos, and we'll end the show.
I'm not buying the Broncos. You buying the Broncos?
Dude.
Let Russ cook.
Oh my God.
I'm just mad at myself. So the Broncos are on my short list of team. I was going to bet against them in the season win markets. I did not play Denver under, and 2 games in, I'm kicking myself for not playing Denver under. But there was under or pass for the Broncos going into the campaign. The thought process for me, they just got rid of the worst coach in the NFL. That has to be worth a game or 2.
Did they?
And that's why I didn't play him under. Except for that, maybe.
So if Peyton goes, 4 and 13, was Hackett really the worst coach in the NFL, or is this really a shit team?
Both, but Hackett was not a good coach last year for Denver.
Okay.
There's no.
Sell on Denver. I'm with you there, my brother. Fun show. Great stuff. Mark Zinno, thank you for joining us. Steve Merril, always amazing. We have Dan Newber tomorrow on the show. First time ever. I'm excited. Teddy, my brother, I'm going to California Sandwiches for a veal. I'm pumped and hungry. I got to tape 3 NFL addresses today. Take us home.
That's going to wrap it for the Tuesday edition of WagerTalk Today. We'll do it again tomorrow. Same time, same channel, 9 a.m. right here on the left coast. Noon for you guys back east. Between now and then, you know what to do. Enjoy the games, and best of luck with all your wagers.